Okay, gang. Finally got the MS400 back from Ethan Trainer. I've been sick. I think I got COVID again. I don't know. I ain't gonna get tested. But it's a pretty rough weekend. I'm feeling better now, but I'm still sick and it's bitter cold. But you know what? I'm not gonna let it stop me from running this thing, not one more day. I'm excited about it. Now, at the end of this video, we're going to talk about the troubles that Ethan had with porting this saw. But for now, let's fire it up and run it. I did try and do a factory reset on it, and it did not do it the way that I am used to. I don't know that it did it at all. Normally you put it on choke, you fire it up, let it sit there and idle for at least 30 seconds. It sat there and it idled for about a minute, minute and a half. And then you just go straight to full throttle. And you hold it. It takes a long time too. It's eerie. I hate the the reset procedure on these Stihl M-tronics. It's frickin' stupid. I would say it's actually dangerous. It's no good, okay? But you hold the trigger down and it's just, and then eventually it reaches a point to where it figures out what you're doing, and it goes, oh, okay, I should test the temperature of the air and the air density and all this stuff and figure out how much fuel I should give it. And it goes, and then it runs. Couldn't get it to do it. As a matter of fact, whenever I let off the throttle, it died. And I thought, oh shit, I've just blown this saw. But it fired back up, and we're gonna go ahead and test it the way it is. And yes, I'm excited because it seems like it's gonna run good. This is a 24-inch bar with a square grind chain. It's a Stihl RS square grind that was made by Jeff Seacombe. That did not go as expected. It's blazing, but it ain't got no ass. Every time it hits a spot that it doesn't like, it just bogs and wants to shut off. That's not right. Maybe I need to try and do that reset again. Let's try it. It's already warm, so. Fuck me. Damn, I feel bad about this. Ethan worked his ass off on that thing. I mean, yeah, maybe the chain needs to be sharpened, but I'm going to throw this chain on my 590 and see how well it cuts. I mean, I know this thing's way faster, but... Okay, that's reassuring. That chain has gotten dull. And in getting dull, it's gotten grabby. And before it was just cutting like laser. But it's square grind chain. And I do believe whenever they go, they go. All right? It's never hit dirt or anything like that, but I have been running it for quite a while. So that tells the story. And the story is while that MS400 is probably going to produce a lot of horsepower, it doesn't have much torque. It's going to spin really fast, and it's going to cut really fast, but going to have to keep a nice sharp chain on it, because as soon as it hits a spot it doesn't like and it wants to bog, it just wants to shut off. So I'll do more testing with it in the future, but do I think there's anything wrong with the saw? No. I think that it's got a magnesium piston in it. It doesn't carry any weight, and you know, it doesn't have any ass. So just going to keep a sharp chain on it. Pretty simple, really. So that thing, yeah, it's really pulling hard and driving me into the wood. And it was doing that with the 400 as well. But I have that chain, I took it off of my 562. And the last time I ran it, it felt fine to me. But the very last time I ran it, might have been doing some real work, and I might have hit a little bit of dirt. I don't think I did, no. It just simply got dull over time. And you know, it happens. It happens with all of them. So we'll call this video good for now. Even though it didn't do what I wanted it to, I think that it'll be a different machine with a nice fresh chain on it. And we will have further testing of that in a different video. But for this one, we're going to call it quits right here. Remember, I'm sick. First, what problems did Ethan have when porting this chainsaw? Kept having an air leak, and he went over and over and over it. Here's a video. And so that happened over and over and over again for him. He couldn't find the air leak anywhere. He vacuum tested it, everything. He couldn't find anything. And so then he started swapping out parts. He went for a coil first, and then he went for a solenoid in the carburetor. And then he actually took and put a 391 carburetor on the saw. That's a standard carburetor, and here's the results. So as you can see, with the 391 carburetor, it worked perfect. There was no issue whatsoever. It idled just fine. So there was an air leak at idle, and he kept thinking that maybe the carb couldn't compensate for the port work and all that stuff with the M-tronic, in place. And I I called Richard. I sent Richard Flagg a message to see if he had a MS400 carburetor lying around that he wasn't using that we could use to see if that was the problem for this MS400. Well, he said, nothing wrong with that. It's your carburetor bolts are tightened down too much. And I said, what? And he said, yep, I've had the problem myself, and it is, if you tighten those down too much, then it warps your manifold and causes an air leak, and it's not detectable with a vacuum test or anything like that. So I was like, what? And so I called Ethan and told him, and Ethan was like, what? But sure enough, that was it. So here it is, broadcasting it to the world. Whenever you're reporting or doing any work on these MS400s, those two bolts holding the carburetor in place just need to be snugged. Not much more than that whatsoever. So Ethan got it, and the way that Richard said to troubleshoot it, he said start it up and, you know, keep it running and back those bolts out until you no longer have to throttle it to keep it running, and then you don't have an air leak. Now, isn't that shitty? Yes, that is shitty. That is really, really, really shitty. And Ethan was like, yeah, that was the problem. It was leaking around the carburetor intake, or the manifold, however it is. You tighten those. He's like, they were just barely tightened. And so what he did was he got it right, and he put blue Loctite on there and put it back together and got it set where he wanted it and let it dry. And now it's good. There's no more air leaks. So it's like, what the F, man? You know, come on. That is completely contrary to what should be happening. Everybody wants to tighten it up to make sure it's not leaking. Anyways, but that's the problem, and I guess it's pretty common with these 400s. Anyway, so there you have it. But now the saw itself, as you can see in the video, the 590 was able to handle that blunt chain a lot better than the 400 could. You know, it would hit a spot and it was wanting to bog the saw, and the 590 just went ahead and pulled it on through. You know, kept going. 400 wants to completely stall and borderline shut off. And sometimes it did shut off, you know. And so that's the 400. It's got a Peaky power band, right? And because it doesn't have any weight to that piston, it just stops it in its tracks, and you drop completely out of that power band, and it happens so abruptly that sometimes it's killing the saw. Now, if you're in that power band, holy smokes, that thing's fast. That thing's got a lot of power to it. It does. It's got a lot. But is it Ethan's fault? Hell no. He can do just as good a job as anybody and better than most. So this isn't an Ethan thing. This is the Stihl 400. And I have complained about Charlie Briscoe's Stihl 400 as well. I mean, and you know, me and Charlie have talked about this personally. He's right on board with me. That saw is awesome for a race, you know. But whenever you're working these saws, you're not racing them. You're working them. And if it bogs and just, you know, the chain stops spinning, that's bad enough. But if it bogs and shuts down the saw, that's a problem, you know. And so I will tell you that we got a video coming up right after this one where I actually put a fresh not a new out of the box, but a pretty fresh C83 chain on there. And it ran so much better. But I did notice that I was having to push on it in order to keep it off of its rev limiter. And that's just a pain in the ass, man. I mean, I don't know. It'll take me having a day or two of actually working that saw before I make any real decisions of whether or not I like it. As of right now, though, I'm like, nah, man. I mean, it's too finicky. I mean, whenever it's in its zone, that thing pulling. That thing is nice. But as soon as it drops out of its zone, of its power band, you're in a world of hurt, you know. And then also, whenever it's in its power band, it's producing so much power that it's wanting to bounce off the rev limiter. So that means you have to force it through to keep it off of the rev limiter. And whenever you're forcing it through, you find yourself in situations where, I would rather just be letting the saw gently eat, right? But that doesn't seem to be an option. You with me? It just is like, if you pull partial throttle, I tried to pull partial throttle a couple times in this video. I know it's in the next video. And it just didn't like it. It didn't like partial throttle. It's full tilt or nothing. And whenever you get full tilt, then you find yourself in a situation to where you're going, you're like, damn, my tip's gonna get buried in the dirt over there. And you know, like whenever you get to the bottom of the log that's laying on the ground, you'll want to be feathering it. You know, it's the way you do it. And this thing doesn't seem to like that. So this video is a prime example of I need to learn that saw. Once I learn that saw, it might be game over, and that's the best thing that there ever is. You know? It's like riding a two-stroke motorcycle, right? Like a proper motocrosser, you know? A CR250, a KX250, something like that. Or even better, no, this is like a 125. Yeah. This is like a YZ125, baby, right? They produce in, you know, factory form, you know, like 32 horsepower, right? But that 32 horsepower doesn't exist at all until it does. That's the epitome of the light switch power band. 125 would be like bar 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 wee, and then there you go, you're off to the races. And once you learn how to ride a motorcycle like that, you stay in that power band, you know, by feathering the clutch and keeping the throttle pretty much wide open. So maybe this is just a situation where I need to learn to run that ported MS400. Because let me tell you, it's got potential. I mean, it is strong. It is really, really, really strong. But it's all right there at like, I don't know, 10,500 to 12,000. That's it. You got like a 1,500 RPM working range. Maybe that's an exaggeration, you know, I get it, but you get my point, you know, whereas that 590 that you saw me, I mean, that thing's got a power band that ranges from probably 6,500 to 11.5. It's got a really wide power band, lots of torque. It carries its momentum. And so it makes, like, dealing with that blunt chain, it dealt with it a lot better than the MS400 could. So, which is better? I don't know. I'm not going to make any calls. Got to run that saw, actual work days with that saw and stuff like that. I know he milked some power out of it. I don't know what his numbers are or anything. And this was the first one he's ever done. So it was a learning experience for him. And boy, I'm glad he did it. I just didn't want to have to deal with that. And the reason he did it, I won a Freeport job at Sawfest, and I was very excited to get a saw ported by him. But I got to say, in hindsight, am I glad I sent him the 400? I don't know. It seems so finicky. I kind of wish I'd sent him something else. I don't know. But, oh well. You know, I mean, it is what it is. He does great work, and I'm very happy to have this. And it's just the 400, man. The MS400 is unique. And I am completely undecided on whether or not that uniqueness is a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence of saying I don't think it's a good thing. You know, because my John Sered 65cc 2165 will pull as good as this thing does, I think. But it's going to have a nice broad curve to it. And it'll pull higher RPMs too, probably, because it's not rev limited, or at least not as low. I don't know. I'm talking shit. I need to end this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Ethan, thank you, buddy, for the free port job. I am very happy to have received it. But I will say the 400, I just don't... It's so small and lightweight. And now it's so powerful, but it carries it all right up top. And I just don't even know. I just don't even know. You understand? I got to learn that saw. And I got to keep a sharp chain on it. Got to.